Hey guys, Dave from Nerdarchy, for nerds by nerds, hanging out with these nerds.
Nathan Nerdarch.
Nerdarch is Ted.
And it's time to jump back into the Starfinder Core Rulebook for classes. This time we're talking about the mechanic.
Jump down the description below where you can sign up for Nerdarchy the newsletter, get weekly gaming tips, as well as learn how to game with us.
So delving back into Starfinder, this time we're going into the classes, and we have the mechanic.
So on page 68 of your trusty Starfinder guide.
So right off the bat, their stamina points and hit points, again, right in the middle, we've got a 6.
So, I mean, that's pretty good, and for what would typically, in my opinion, fall to more a support character, I think that's pretty beefy. I don't know how you guys felt about that one.
It's not bad, especially depending on which race you combine that with. Their key stat ability is going to be intelligence, with the secondary even dexterity. Class skills, they get 4 plus their intelligence modifier. They get a decent selection: athletics, computers, engineering, medicine, perception, physical science, piloting, and profession.
And they get access to some light armor and basic weapons and grenades and things like that.
Yeah, small arms, grenades, basic melee weapons is their proficiencies as well. Absolutely. And so far, both the mechanic and both the envoy get special weapon specialization. So without going any further, I'm going to guess everybody gets weapon specialization at a certain point. It just seems like it.
You just pick what you like.
So we have the second best attack progression for the mechanic, and their good saves are fort and reflex.
I think the coolest thing about the mechanic is the AI that you get, and I like the actual wording that they use. It's like, you make this thing, you're the only one that knows how to make it, fix it, repair it, use it properly, but it's completely and utterly customizable, upgradable as you gain levels, and you either have the option of, I'm going to build a drone, and we're not talking like, oh, I make the little helicopter thing that's just a...
but it could be.
But it could be. That's just a little spy drone. Or you have essentially like a secondary brain that you install in your head.
Yeah, it doesn't have to be, but yeah, it could be a wearable piece of equipment, or it can actually be a cybernetic thing that you build into you. So yeah, do you want to work with something that's cyber, or do you want to be something that's cyber? Or is kind of like the first choice you have to make.
And that choice really dictates the things that you have. It dictates your choices and the kind of character build that you're going to go with. And I love that aspect. And I've been playing a lot of intelligence-heavy, mechanical-type characters recently. And reading through Mechanic, I'm torn of whether I just I'm going to make another one of these guys, or can I pull myself away from it enough to choose another class?
Well, it's a pretty sweet class.
It is.
Now, would you say that choice in the beginning almost makes like 2 different subclasses?
Yes, 100%.
Yeah, and that is what we're saying with the classes. They're very customizable. They have these modular components that, depending on the choices you make, they're going to make completely different kinds of characters. Like, I could see, even if you go with the AI, which they use AI, but it's really not an AI. It really doesn't have much intelligence. It gets more as you go up in level, or more intelligence like, but it's never truly like an independent AI.
Right.
So it's maybe more like machine learning or something.
It's more like
an automated assistant than an automated intelligence.
Yeah.
Because it doesn't think for itself, but it aids you in any of the tasks that it's linked to.
Yeah, that would actually be a good description, or maybe even like an external hard drive in some ways, right?
Well, it's not an android.
Yeah.
That, like a side buddy android is what we're saying.
Right.
But you get a lot of benefits, and it's like, I could see going, oh, you're a cyber super soldier with the exocortex build, or or that same build could just make a super hacker but you don't actually need, you don't need tools so much, because you just interface yourself with stuff. Yeah, pretty much. But the same thing, you could be a combat specialist with drones, and use your drone to do a lot of the fighting, or basically it's a combat buddy for you. or it could be reconnaissance, or it could be a helper for for doing mechanic type stuff. So you could be very much like the class says, a mechanic, or you can be something completely different.
It's like an Uber transformer assistant.
Now, I will say a mechanic compared to Envoy did remind me that this game is based off of Pathfinder. Like when I looked at some of the DCs, difficulty challenges you're going to set for your abilities, and I looked at some of the things that they could do with their skills. Oh yeah, there's going to be checks in the 40s and 30s and maybe even 50s. So it's Pathfinder, So where they see there's definitely some things that are streamlined, but there's definitely some other things that are going to go. Yeah, this is very much built off the carcass of 3.5.
Yeah, if you're going to go with a mechanic, you want a high intelligence, and you want to make sure you're dumping those points into the proper skills every level, because you have to have it. Yeah.
So they're one of their abilities they get at first level. It's called bypass, and what it is, it gives you a +1, 2 +6 eventually at level 20, and that is going to be a bonus to check when it comes to electronic devices and computer systems, right? Getting inside of them. Well, if you take your take your computer's check and you max that out and you have a good stat, that means you have like a 20. You're gonna have like a 28. Add 6 to that, right? That's a 34, and there's other ways to increase that as well. So I'm like, yeah. So it was just interesting. It doesn't really matter so much. You just know that if you're compared to playing other games that are more streamlined, that this is gonna be a little bit different for you. But if you're familiar with Pathfinder and 3.5, you're coming home.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah. Essentially. So, like I said, very first level artificial intelligence. You got to track. Artificial intelligence at first level, you have to pick between your drone and your exocortex. Like we said, one is a helper brain that is either in you or near you, and one of them is just a helper. The other thing is bypass, which we kind of talked about a little bit, and then your custom rig, right? So your custom rig is another feature that's really cool, and this is like, well, I'm a craftsman and I have really cool tools for doing my job.
So you can build them either off of a tool set that you already have, or if you've got the exocortex, I think you can build it within there. And if you somehow damaged or lost yours, in an hour's work, you can be like, oh, well, I've got a set of, hacker tools right here. I mean, hours worth of work. Oh, I've got a set of, my rig again.
So a big part of this class is going to be upgrading that artificial intelligence, upgrading your rig, mechanic tricks, as well as the overload ability. So, pretty much like in a nutshell, there's a bunch more things. Like every level you're getting cool stuff. But those are the main things you're going to deal with. And mechanic tricks are going to kind of determine what kind of mechanic you are. Like, are you going to build the cyber super soldier, or are you going to be like, I fix ships, I get things going, I control machines? Like that's where that stuff's going to happen.
So I think between your mechanics tricks and your AI, the amount of choices that you have, it's just pages and pages worth of stuff to read through. But all those choices are all built into the one class, and they run quite the spectrum, and it's impressive. Blew me away.
So one of the cool things we mentioned overload, right? Well, that's an ability that keeps getting better. Well, we've played in Star Wars games where you've played the character where you're like a mechanic and you're like, this is a gun battle, I have nothing to do, and the GM in that game is like, well, there's a computer console, and you can take control of stuff if you wanted to do that. Well, this ability is that, right? It's not the GM going, hey, there's this thing you could do if you wanted to, or a player could be trying to be creative. It's going, nah, it's right part of the class.
It's baked in.
It's baked in. Like initially, like actual creatures and races like androids, you can't do anything to them, but eventually you get to a point where you can. So that's pretty cool. Like whether it's just shutting them down for a round or actually taking them over for a round. Man. And then there becomes some other things you can do with that. So if you go with your AI and you go Cortex, you don't really have a lot of choices at first level. It's just this is what you have. You're going to build your mechanics tricks around that, and basically it just makes you better at doing things. It's still really cool. But where you're going to really have a lot of choices to make is if you go with a drone, because the first thing you're going to have to pick is what kind of drone, because they have drone chassis, and it's a combat drone, hover drone, or a stealth drone. So, basically, one of them is completely, stealth and reconnaissance. One of them is more of your helper, your assistant for doing mechanic work. And the other one is, I'm going to kill stuff, and this guy's going to help me kill stuff. There's literally an ability. It's one of the mechanic tricks where you can meld with your drone. So like it becomes like a backpack or something. And in certain abilities that the drone has, you're going to actually be able to access and use them. Like if it has flying, like you could strap on your drone and use it as a jetpack.
That is just
It's like
awesome.
a utility pack all together.
It's it's a utility belt. So the mechanic, as far as I can see, is kind of a little bit like the Batman character for Starfinder. I mean, we haven't gotten the operative yet, which may also be the Batman.
The operative so far, it's like, the mechanic is really leaning me towards there, but like before reading that, like the operative was the top on my list to play. But if we get into the actual themes, I think that we've done this with Envoy, and when we did the flip through, we talked about how cool it is to give us a combination, theme and class, and how they're different. But I think like you can even go one step further, that depending upon what you do with your AI, you can go in a completely different direction than what they're saying here. So like if you go with the drone, you're like a combat technician as a mercenary. And like that picture there, I was like, oh man, that looks amazing. I want to play that character. Give me this and just drop that in. I'm good to go.
And then like the idea of playing the cyber soldier, they kind of wrap that into a enhanced commando, and that's going with the bounty hunter theme, and that's also the exocortex as your AI, which is totally what I saw all along. We have a saboteur with your outlaw, and that is also using the stealth drone, so you're sneaking in, you're breaking stuff. Then you have Starship Engineer, and this is the one that most seems like, I'm a mechanic, right?
And that's what I thought of, like, oh, a mechanic, I fix ships, like this is what this is. But like this, again, the options allow you to go in so many different directions. I really applaud how this class has gone.
And that particular theme, the Starship Engineer, they pair that with the Spacefarer, and that's another exocortex as your artificial intelligence. So they give you some cool ways to combine these things, and I feel like there's a ton of other ways to do it. Pretty much every one of these, I could see you flipping the AI, and then it almost like creates a completely different type of character.
Yeah, I would agree.
That is the mechanic for Starfinder. What do you guys think? Is it on your list to play? We got a place for that. It's called the comments below. While you're at it, like, share, and subscribe.
You can check out the articles over at nerdarchy.com.
You can support us over on Patreon.
So until next time.
Stay nerdy.